Whenever you speak about God and religion, this is one thing that inevitably comes up. Either you will ask to yourselves, or people will ask you, what do you mean when you talk about God? When atheists and theists are debating, as they have been for centuries and millennia, whether God exists or does not exist, in both cases, the question comes up, what is the God? Who is the God that you are trying to prove? What is this God that you are trying to disprove? In both cases, one often finds they are vague about it. They quarrel vigorously. God exists. God does not exist. But what is this God that you are trying to prove or disprove? The concepts are not very clear. I'm talking to children especially. They will ask you at one point or the other that, what is God? In that persistent way, nagging way that children have of asking the simplest of questions, what is God? So this question, what is God? Is it even possible to form a clear idea of God? I've given this talk earlier, and once I was going through the streets of Calcutta in a car, and I saw written in big letters on the wall, God defined is no God at all. I said, that puts an end to my talk, definitely defining God. But, there is a point in that. Why do people say that God cannot be defined? These and other questions are what we shall explore this morning. Of all the literature that I have read in Vedanta, the very best definition of God that I have come across, the very best definition of Brahman that I have come across, is what I'll share today, this morning. In all the literature, not only Vedanta or the Upanishads, but all the literature of the East and the West, philosophical and religious, I have not come across a more sophisticated, a more profound definition of God. It is a definition which is so precise, so clear. There's one thing I can really promise, that you will not leave this room today without a clear idea of at least what is meant by God in the Upanishads. And unforgettable. So clear, so precise, and sublime, philosophically sophisticated. And yet further, will not leave this room not only without an idea of what exactly God is, but also, and I may dare to say this, you will not leave this room without finding God. Before this definition, we are seekers of God. After this definition, you can no longer say, I'm seeking God. You have found it. You know exactly what God is and where God is. So, this is what is there on the table in front of us this morning. Let's go into this. I shall demand undivided attention. I usually do, but this time I really mean it. Because the definition unfolds like a mathematical proof. You'll see for yourself. You'll see how precise and deeply connected it is. If we miss one step of that, we'll be lost. So we must walk together. And I'll again warn you, I'll flag it when we come to the crucial portions. The text which I shall be using this morning is from one of the major Upanishads, the Taittiriya Upanishad, the second chapter of the Taittiriya Upanishad, the first paragraph of the second chapter of the Taittiriya Upanishad. The second chapter is called Brahmananda Valli, the chapter dealing with the bliss of Brahman. Brahman is the name for God in the Upanishads, in Vedanta. Brahman. So the question is, what is Brahman? Can we define Brahman? The text starts with a short sentence which encapsulates the entirety of Vedanta. It says, it goes like this. Brahma vidapnoti param. The knower of Brahman attains the highest. Brahmavid apnoti param. The knower of Brahman attains the highest. In this little sentence, I feel all of religion and spirituality has been poured into this little sentence. There is something called Brahman, that's one. Second, it is possible to know Brahman. And third, by knowing Brahman, we attain whatever we could have wanted in life. The knower of Brahman attains the highest. Now, 3 questions come to us when we hear such a thing. First of all, what is this blessed Brahman you're talking about? What exactly is it? Can you define it for us? Number 1. Number 2, you speak of knowing Brahman. We would like to know, how do you know Brahman? What do you mean by knowing Brahman? And number 3, attainment of the highest. What do you mean by the highest? What exactly are we going to get after all this? So 3 questions. What is Brahman? How do you know Brahman? And 3, what do you mean by attaining the highest when you know Brahman? The next sentence clarifies, gives answers. Next few sentences give answers, gives us the answers to these 3 questions. These questions are, in brief, you will get the answers. Tadeshabhyukta, it is said, in response to these possible questions. Satyam jnanam anantam brahma, yo veda nihitam guhayam parame vyoman, so ashnute sarvan kaman brahmana saha vipaschiteti. Now, what has been said here? Brahman is infinite existence, knowledge. Existence, knowledge, infinity is Brahman. That's the answer to the first question. When you ask, what is Brahman? The answer to that question is, Brahman is existence, knowledge, infinity. Satyam, jnanam, anantam. How do you know this Brahman? Yo veda nihitam guhayam parame vyoman. Who knows Brahman as the reality shining within his own heart. Who knows Brahman as, I am that Brahman. It's a poetic way of saying, I am Brahman. You have to know Brahman in this way. And attainment of the highest, what do you get out of it? The answer is, so ashnute, that person, that enlightened person, enjoys, attains, sarvan kaman, whatever you want, whatever one could want in life, all of that. Well, all of that is what we are trying to get. We got an education, we've got a family life, relationships, we are achieving things in the world. We are trying to get what we want in life. Well, all of that you're trying to get, and not too successfully, little by little. All of that at once and forever. At one stroke you get everything. Well, incredible. And you'll say, okay, I'm sold. I need to get me some of that Brahman. Well, we are not concerned with the whole of it. All these things we spoke about, we are only concerned about this morning with the first question. What is Brahman? How do you know Brahman? And how do you get that which is promised? That's later. The second question I'll deal with in detail in August, in my lecture in August. And the third question, attainment of all that one could possibly hope for in life, is I'll deal with that question in September. There are 2 other lectures coming up. But today, the crucial question, what is Brahman? And I shall direct our attention to that sentence, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Satyam, reality, existence, truth. Jnanam, knowledge. Anantam, infinity, is Brahman. Now I'm flagging it. Here onwards, full attention. Little children would screw up their faces and look carefully, yes. And go red in the face with all the attention they are giving. We need to be like that, present for this. There is a way of going about expanding this definition. In computers, you have something called a zip file, where you take many files and you zip it up into one file, compress it. When you need to use it, you need to unzip that file. In the same way, one needs to unzip this definition of Brahman. Definition of God, the word for God in Vedanta is Brahman. Definition of Brahman, we need to unzip it. And there is a way of going about it. This is what I invite you all to follow. The way is this. You start with the word Brahman. The word Brahman starts very simply. The word Brahman literally means that which expands without limit. Brihatvad bringhanatvad atma brahma iti giyate. Brahman is that which swells. Literally, the word bringadhatu, it means to swell or expand without limit. It literally means, if you translate it to in English, it will mean the vast. Note that it is impersonal. There is no he or she. It's not a person. It's just called the vast. The vast what? A vast house, a big or a vast country or a vast space. It's not qualified. They don't say vast what, just vast. When you say just vast, without anything attached to it, a vast ocean or a vast heart, nothing like that, just vast, it literally means infinite. Just vast, without any qualification, means infinite, without any limit. And the word which is next to, just preceding the word Brahman, is Anantam. The Sanskrit word Anantam literally means no limit. Vast, Brahman means vast, and the word just preceding it means exactly what the meaning of vast is, no limit. Anantam. Antam in Sanskrit means limit. Anantam means no limit. Now, let us explore this word, no limit, unlimited, infinite. What is limit? What do you mean by limit? To understand the unlimited, we must understand what is meant by limit. In Vedanta, we speak of three kinds of limits. Three kinds of limits. Something is made limited, finite, in three ways. What are they? Desha Kala Vastu. Desha means space. Kala means time. Vastu means object. Limits are limits in space, limits in time, and limits in object. Wait for it. That sounds a little peculiar. One might already begin to understand what is meant by limit in space and limit in time. But what is limit in object? We'll come to that. It's a very interesting concept. But let's first start with what is meant by limit in space. Remember where we are in the definition. Brahman, the vast, unlimited, no limit. No limit, three kinds of limits. There are three kinds of limits. First kind of limit, limited in space. Limited in space means something is located here and not there. The very fact that you are here in the Vedanta society sitting in the temple means that you are not in the bookshop or on the freeway or at home. You are here. That means you are limited in space. Every object that we know about, all the physical objects that we know about are limited in space. They have a beginning and they have an end in space. This is where they are and that's not where they are. So everything has a limit in space. California, big state, has a limit in space. After some time it becomes Arizona or Nevada or some other state. The United States, big country, vast, but it has a limit. After some time it becomes either the Atlantic Ocean or Canada or Mexico or the Pacific. So everything is limited in space. Now imagine something has no limit in space. The definition tells us unlimited in space, without any limit. If something has no limit in space, what would it be? What would happen to it? If something has a limit in space, it is here and not there. If something has no limit in space, you cannot say it is only here and not there. You have to say there is no place where it is not. There is no place where it is not. There is no location in space where it is not, if it is not limited in space. So Brahman, by definition, is something that is not limited in space. So there is no place, no space where it is not. The word for that used in religion is omnipresent. So Brahman is omnipresent. This is the first result that we have got. We have to proceed very mathematically. The first result that we have got from this definition is Brahman, whatever it is, one thing we now know, it is something that has to be unlimited in space, omnipresent everywhere. Second, The other kind of limit we can speak about is limit in time, kala, in time. The second kind of limit. And the Upanishad says, anantam, no limit in time. What is a limit in time? A limit in time means something exists after its creation and before its destruction. In between birth and death, we exist. Before the birth, this body was not there. After death, this body will not be there. Before its production, creation in a factory somewhere, this glass was not there. Now it is there, and there will come a time when the glass will be destroyed. It will be broken maybe. It's a broken glass. It's no longer a glass. And you'll say the glass does not exist anymore. So after its destruction, it will not exist. It is limited in time. It is cut off in time. So birth and death are limits in time. Creation and destruction are limits in time. Just about everything that we know in our life, in this universe, is limited in time. Everything is subject to birth, everything is subject to death. In the Gita, Sri Krishna says, Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu. That which is born will certainly die. So that which is born will certainly die. There are limits in time. All our life is a little game we play between these two limits. A Swami used to humorously say that what is life? What is life? And he says, you write, the person was born in 1920 and passed away in 2010. You write on the tombstone. So 1920 to 2010, and there's a little dash between that. And so the Swami would humorously say, what is life but a dash from the womb to the tomb? That little dash. And those two dates on the tombstone, they show us limit in time. Our time is limited. Now suppose there is something which is not limited in time. The definition says, Brahman, the vast, is not limited in time. Which means there is no time about which we can say before this Brahman did not exist. We cannot say that. Because it's not limited by birth. And we cannot say there is a time after which Brahman will not exist. There is no time previous to which Brahman did not exist. There is no time after which Brahman will not exist. That means it's not limited in time. Time does not cut off Brahman. The result we get here, mathematically, deriving it, Brahman is eternal. Brahman is beyond time. Brahman does not come into existence in time, does not disappear, go out of existence in time. Time does not demarcate Brahman. You cannot make a tombstone and put a date to Brahman, beginning and end of Brahman. No. So Brahman is not cut off in time. Brahman is eternal. That's the second result we have got from the little word, anantam, unlimited. Now come to the third kind of limit. If you remember, I had said limitation of space, limitation of time, limitation of object. The third kind of limit is limitation of object. Let's investigate this. This is a very interesting concept. What do you mean by limitation of object? It's a simple concept, but a little peculiar way of thinking. When I say limitation of object, it means everything is itself and nothing else. So what is this? It's a glass. It's not a table. It's not the Swami. It's not a room. It's not the country. It's not so it's not anything except a glass. You call it the law of identity. A thing is identical to itself and different from everything else. So everybody, when you say, I have an identity card which you show on the airport, your passport or driving license, what does it tell you? What does that thing tell the TSA person? This person is such and such person and nothing else. You are Mr. or Miss or Mrs. so and so and nothing else and nobody else. So that is a limitation, an object. A thing is itself and nothing else. Precisely itself and nothing of the billions of other entities. Each entity is itself and separate from the billions of other and trillions of other entities. All right. Suppose something does not have such a limit. Think about it. The mind boggles. Suppose something does not have this object limitation. What would it mean? Object limitation means a thing is this and nothing else in the whole universe. No object limitation means there is nothing in the universe which is different from it. Object limitation means everything in the universe is different from it. It's only itself. No object limitation means nothing in the universe is different from it. Follow this carefully. Nothing in the universe is different from Brahman. There is nothing in the universe apart from Brahman. There is no second thing apart from Brahman in the universe. No second is equal to non-dual. Non-dual is equal to Brahman is non-dual, Advaitam. The Sanskrit word is Advaitam. Let me repeat that. At this point, usually students say, back up a little bit. What did you say? I said the object limitation means a thing is identical to itself and nothing else. Very good. No object limitation means that thing, if there is such a thing which has no object limitation, that means there is nothing different from it. If there is nothing different from it, there cannot be even one entity apart from it. So if there is not even a second entity apart from it, that becomes non-dual. Non-dual means a second thing. Dual means a second thing exists. Non-dual, there is no second thing apart from Brahman. Brahman is non-dual, Advaitam.